everyone. Welcome to another week of Thinkercyze. Thinkercyze is a virtual challenge brought to you by the Seattle Design Festival. I'm Yasser Al-Timimi, joined by my co-host Trevor Dykstra. And today we have an amazing group called the Black Designers and Microsoft. We have Terell and Cherian. How are you guys doing?
Good.
How are you? Thank you.
Happy to be
Welcome with us.
Happy to be here.
Great. So tell us, guys, about this amazing group and how do you guys get together?
Right on. So we are a group of designers, right? And when we start thinking about design, we have to look at the emphasis of a greater discipline. That greater discipline includes, design of, content design, researchers, producers, data science, front-end developers, motion, audio, illustration, industrial, the design and practice all together. And how we could, bring that importance of our voice and influence to the creative world of Microsoft. And in doing so, creating somewhat of a catalyst of a space that, could promote more professional growth and more personal responsibilities associated with being a designer and having that pride of being a designer for Microsoft. And what in general that means, because I think we recognize that, being a designer at Microsoft is completely different than being a designer at other tech companies. And
For
just
sure.
recognizing that strength that we're, growing as superheroes of design and, looking at how we could become a better catalyst for other people out there, external to Microsoft, but then also internal to Microsoft that may be African-American or Black that may be interested.
Amazing. Okay. What do you think, Cherian? Do you want to add something to this?
Well, of course. There's three of us that co-founded this group. The reason why this was so important for all of us, because a lot of times when we're on projects or on certain teams, we're the only ones. And so Terell was pretty much the first Black designer that I worked with and was on the same team, which, to be quite honest, that's a complete rarity. And so once we found out that we were on the same team, it was like, wow, okay, great. And then we end up figuring out that there's another designer within the studio named Zoe. And we basically—
Oh, guys, there's one more.
There's one more.
Yes.
So Zoe is another awesome designer, very talented. And we found her during orientation. She was part of a video that they were showing. And we were like, wait, there's three of us. And so that in itself was just amazing because I haven't seen this. And when we got together and we talked to Zoe and we were like, this is really rare to see three Black designers in one studio. And we were like, what could we do to not only help other people to see that design is here at Microsoft and that we do exist. Just like you were saying, like, sometimes we feel like the unicorn, we're the only ones. So now that we found each other, we're like, well, let's figure out a way, after doing a head count with everyone, seeing if there's other Black designers within Microsoft and just say, hey, let's build a community that we can feel more like ourselves, because it gets lonely. And then also recruit other Black designers into Microsoft, because it's just necessary. And we're not just showing people who are just entry level, we're looking at people who are in leadership positions and everything else, because we have to see ourselves in these positions to know that exists. So
Absolutely.
we're so excited. We have so much support behind us, and we're just happy to be here and just to build our community.
Yeah, and I
That's
think
really
that's
great.
the awesome part about the whole thing, like just the general support behind us. Our executive sponsor is Jonas Sterling, and he's the GM of design here at Microsoft, and just the principles that he's teaching towards us, but then also just what he's wanting to live as a design org is just something truly special. And I think that empowers us to, have certain values like, bring your whole self to work, especially in your design work. you know, show up and show out, you know, creating a true design pipeline, and, you know, things like, you know, provide transition for people who want to be designers, creating avenues for that. So that type of support coming into that just makes it just all better.
Yes.
That's really amazing. Okay, so now we want to get in the deeps of this week's challenge, and I think Trevor's have the great questions for this.
Well, I have the questions, but maybe I'll throw it to our guests to actually tell us what the challenge is. I know our overall prompt is, what does it mean to be an ally? And that was a question I was going to ask anyway. So maybe you can help me out.
Yeah, so I'll start us off, and you know, Cherian can definitely take us through some of the questions of the challenge itself. But you know, if you know what you were experiencing in the last 3 months, 3 to 4 months, you know, has been a completely different time in the history of our country, all up and together, you know, and there was a lot of questions around, you know, how to actually be an ally, and that hasn't really been solved just yet. There's been a lot of talk, and there's been other people who spoke about it. Like there's books out there, you know, like talk about race, and there's other things that are out there that can help you benefit from just learning there. But you know, no one has really jumped in to actually tackle, you know, what it means to actually be an ally. So from a creative standpoint, as designers, one thing that we kind of ran after was there's a hackathon that happens between Microsoft each year. We use that hackathon as an opportunity to create a change, or a culture of change of how could we get other people to think about how could they ally with us to build things for the hackathon that could influence the communities of African Americans, right? But then as we were thinking about it and we had a conversation with Trevor, it was one of those things where, you know, hey, how could we influence the greater design community of Seattle? And that's when we started thinking about, like, you know, what could we do to assist in our hand of, you know, what it means to be an ally? And then we started to drive into our desire is to, you know, learn a bit more about yourself and the flavor of allyship that the person would want to be. You know, by the, you know, the end of the challenge, we're hoping that, you know, people could grow that context of what type of ally that they want to be, and then somewhat display that allyship in a form of a poster. And that could be, you know, via social media, that could be via 8.5 by 11, but it's just your total expression of what you would want to see allyship as. And we thought that would be a great exercise for people.
That's an amazing idea.
I'd really love to see unique voices, you know, of support versus just copying somebody else's thing. You know, say your own piece about what you're, you know, how you feel like you're an ally versus you know, the black square, right, so to speak.
Right.
So,
right.
So can you take us through a little bit of do you want to go through a few of the questions now? Or how do we want to describe sort of this in more detail?
Want to go through the intro questions?
Sure.
Awesome. So some of the intro questions that we have is, the first one is, what has been your experience within the last 3 months following the events of our country? So you know that we have quite a few protests that's been going on, especially Seattle has been a main focus for a lot of protests, and also with Portland. So we just kind of want to get people to kind of start thinking, you know, what have their experience? Have they been out there protesting? Have they been watching it on TV? Another question is, what has mattered to you the most? How many people of color do you know and engage with on a weekly basis? And what actions have you taken to address what you've seen and heard? So have the events made any changes in your approach to other people? You know, how have you just internalized everything that's on TV? Like, you know, what have you done to kind of address these things? So,
yeah, and in those questions, you know, it's somewhat of an intro just to have a little bit of discovery of yourself.
Yes.
Just to talk a little bit more about, like, you know, the things that you may not have said out loud yet, to get you thinking about, like, you know, what what explicit type of person that you want to be. So yeah, we were hoping that those questions start to, start a general dialogue with you during the challenge, but then also something that carries on after the challenge as well.
That's fabulous. So give us some tips to the audience to finish this challenge.
Right on. So I would say, and definitely would love Cherian's, point of view on this as well. But, I would say to go deep with yourself and really understand, what you experienced in these last 3 months. Towards the end of the questioning, you have a really great example from Jody Ann Bryant, who kind of asks you some questions around, hey, are you a performative ally? Are you an opportunist ally? Are you a secretive ally? Are you a lazy ally, right? And she somewhat gives I won't ruin the challenge, but she somewhat gives you some idea of, what type of ally you could possibly be. Now, I think to put it out there to say, like, if you don't see your form of allyship here, that you're not an ally, I don't think that's true at all. But I think this is a really interesting guideline that could, help you towards a true form of allyship.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, no, absolutely right. I mean, it's also understanding what allyship looks for you, how much how do you kind of show your allyship for other people? Is it like Terell was saying, are you a lazy one? Are you more, involved? Like, what are, it helps give out these conversations about equality and what does it mean to you and how do you see it? And also in the workspace and just anywhere else, like, how do you assist brown and Black people and your counterparts, within equal rights? Like, how do you, like you're saying, are you one that just stand on the sides and just watch it happen, or do you take a more of a participative, approach?
Absolutely. I mean, with these crazy times, and we're seeing a lot of layoffs in the workforce, and we know who's affected most than others. So yeah, it's very important. Okay, Trevor, more questions.
Well, I was gonna say I like that it's referred to as a spectrum. This idea that, like, you can shift yourself on that scale. Because I mean, for a lot of people, I think looking at this is going to be, even if you feel like you're an ally, they're tough questions. Like, okay, well, yes, are you just doing this when whatever the latest hashtag is going on, and that's when you're most vocal, or are you, and it's also, so you all know this. This is why we're missing one person, because our meeting was off. I was on vacation in a rural state, and the rural state, there were folks there who were marching for Black lives in this town that's, not to mince words, I mean, it's full of some pretty, white supremacist sort of values. And like looking at them is like, I'm just impressed when, like, that's a much more difficult conversation, or a much more difficult platform to speak from than here in Seattle, where it's pretty easy for me to go out to a march and, like, I don't feel there's everybody else is out there, or feels like everybody else is out there with you. And, like, then you look at it and, like, well, am I taking the same risk, or, I could go above and beyond than what I'm doing now, compared to these other folks who are, like, literally sort of putting it out there, and of course that's nothing compared to anybody else. I've still got plenty of privilege just because of my skin color. So I really like that idea of the spectrum. So I was going to ask, I do like, there's one here about what can you do if you see someone discriminated against, what action can you take? That question is sort of open-ended. Is the idea is that it's sort of your determination of how comfortable you are in sort of taking action? Right.
I mean, the benefit of, our ERG together is, like, we're connected through outside groups. And one of those outside groups is the Black Designers of Seattle. And shout out to Rebecca Markham. She's doing an amazing job with that. But that group has designers from Microsoft, from Facebook, from, Amazon, and we're all coming together and talking about specific things. But one of those common things is like, you know, how are people performing, or how are people like, I said performing because there's this idea of you're performing in your pain, right? But there is also like a narrative that's there of like, how do you handle it when everyone else feels like there's nothing wrong in the room? So, you know, that's where that question was kind of like heading down. And we left it open-ended because, you know, there is no right or wrong answer to it. It's really just the action that you would take. And, you know, as, you know, being from the South, you know, right is right, wrong is wrong, you know, and what things could you speak out against on those things?
So I have something came to my mind. What's the most important question you think in this challenge? You would think this is really crucial when you guys were putting it together? Oh, that's a tough one.
That is a really good question. You know, Cherian, I'm definitely going to let you answer this one first.
I think for me, the most important question is, you know, what does allyship mean? I mean, for everyone else, it does, depending on your background and what you've dealt with, it means something completely different. So it definitely is one of those things where you are taking a look in yourself and just kind of saying like, do I show kind of behaviors that are a little bit on the not so cool side, or, you know, do I really, you know, treat people as fairly as possible? So when you think of allyship and thinking of just like, you know, it kind of makes other people look at their privilege and really just say like, yeah, maybe I got some things to work on. So for me, that's pretty much the most important question, and a question that I feel like a lot of people are just kind of gonna sit on for a little bit. And hopefully they can kind of see like, even if there's things that they like, well, maybe I need some work on this area or that area, that they can just say, yeah, I get it. Like, I understand I have privilege, and because I have privilege, I want to figure out a way so I can be a better ally. So to me, that's pretty much the most important question, and the question that I feel like a lot of people are going to be really pondering on a little bit longer.
I guess, yeah. How about you, Terell?
I love that choice.
I'm coming back to you.
You know, I was battling between that question and the question that basically talks about, you know, what conversations are you having about equality and equity? And the reason why I was battling between those two, because of exactly what Cherian just said, but also in the equity and equality conversation, you have to start considering a time frame. You know, in education, grandparents, great-grandparents, you know, childhood, you know, just common things, just simple things, you know, that question kind of stretches to that things come about. And that privilege is, you know, just the beginning part of it, right? But I think ultimately just to, you know, bring this back into just the world that we live in terms of design and creativity, you know, when we think about equity and equality in design, you know, what areas could we improve in that, and the things that we build moving forward? The really, you know, crazy part about where we are right now is that both sides, or both spectrums of the society, are at a point of discovery. We're learning now with a listening voice of somebody like being there and understanding you for the first time in a very long time, you know, and then on the other side, there's like, you know, a discovery of like, wow, I didn't understand that was wrong. So I, you know, appreciate just where we are right now, because I think there is a beautiful future that we're heading towards.
That's really great. That's really great. So we have less than 8 minutes left, and we would ask each designer that we have the famous question. We call it the time question. I don't know if you, Trevor, you're the expert of this time question.
I want to amend it slightly because I mean,
all right.
In the vein of why the group was created, you know, I think specific. I mean, it's to yourself, but it's specifically just to all that the young Black designers or people who want to go into design. Specifically, you know, what's the piece of advice you would either give to yourself or someone else who's looking to sort of start their career in design? I know there's a lot of ways to sort of think about that, but like, what is the one thing, or maybe it's multiple things.
So we have 7 minutes. We want to hear both of you guys. So go ahead.
Sounds good. I think just a quick shout out to Omani Hill because she got us thinking about this all together. She's a designer here in the Seattle area, which is amazing as well. But to answer that question, the advice that I would give to a young designer that's looking to come into this space, ultimately be yourself. Understand that everything around you will change, but be yourself. Your flavor and whatever you bring to the job that you're going to, they will appreciate you not just because you're a cultural add or a cultural hire, but you are something special.
Man, that's hard to follow. No, I think for me, it's like be the change that you want to see. With all three of us knowing that, I mean, this is such a rare occasion for us. And we decided to make a difference and build this community, not only for us, but future Black designers coming into Microsoft and interest in Microsoft, because it means so much to have a community. And just like Terell said, it's like, absolutely, who you are, big hair and all, makes you awesome. And not to be shamed about who you are. Bring your total full self into these jobs, because that's what's making you a difference. That's what's bringing value to these companies.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Trevor, any more questions you have for
that's excellent. I think we can leave it on that. What I do want to say to our audience is we're doing this challenge. Please be honest with yourself. Please go deep. It's very easy to, I think, sort of read through it and check some boxes and submit something, but use this as an opportunity to like you put here to actually learn something new about yourself.
Absolutely.
You know, take some time. But thank you both. We'll meet Zoe another time. I'm issuing a public apology here to her. It's my fault she's not here. But thank you very much. For everybody watching, you can check out the challenge this week on Thinkercyze.com. I think the only other thing we wanted to ask is where we can find more of your work online, if you'd like to shout out any website or social media.
I think for myself, we'll definitely send you over some tags and stuff, but I think the Microsoft Design channel is actually going to, you know, repost with you guys, and you know, in the future, hopefully we can put something else out there and so that you guys can share.
That's great. Well, we would like to thank you again, guys, for being here. You've been a wonderful group, and we had a lot of fun in this conversation, and we learned a lot. And looking to see you again soon.
Thank you both. This is really awesome.
Thank you.